With the entire leftist ecosystem providing a lot of hype to the communist and radical Islamists like Kanhaiya Kumar, Omar Khalid, Arundhati Roy, and many other comrades from other fields as well. Terrorist sympathizers like Ravish Kumar, Barkha Dutt, Abhishar Sharma, Rana Ayub, and many others from the well-known media houses. Swara Bhaskar, Zishan Ayub, Farhan Akhtar, Mahesh Bhatt, and many others from the Bollywood. Or historians like Romila Thapar, Irfan Habib, Bipin Chandra, D.N. Jha, and many others who used to draft the books that you and I read in schools. Or even hippie cultured professors from various esteemed universities and colleges. With all these communists so well powerful in the ecosystem, many of us would probably think, what if India was a communist country? To get the answer to this question, we must first understand the basic traits of a communist regime, not from the theory, but from the communist practicing countries that are Russia, North Korea, China, Laos, Vietnam, and Cuba. So here we begin. First, single party rule. Be it a Communist Party of the Soviet Union from Lenin to Gorbachev, or CCP from Mao to Xi Jinping. Second, inherited leadership and personality cults. Stalin succeeding Lenin in USSR, or the three Kims of North Korea, Sung, Jong, and Un. A clear indication of inherited powers and personality cults. Third, no to free market. Very evidently, it's one of the core principles of the left, not allowing the foreign investment into their market. The exception to this, China, as it changed only its economic policies in the 20th century. Fourth, no or negligible press freedom. How can one forget the infamous Tiananmen Square killings and no media reporting that? Fifth, censorship on art. All the communist nations have a wicked history of imposing censorship on various forms of art such as cinema, fiction, and poetry. Sixth, mass killings. It is estimated that communist regimes in total have massacred more than 110 million people till date. To put that to a perspective, it is more than the deaths of the both world wars combined. Seventh, foreign policies to please other communist countries. Why do these traits seem so much familiar to us? Well, if we look back from 1947 to 1991, these 44 years India was pretty much like any other communist regime in the world. Going by the first point, the single party rule, from 1947 to 1998, 48 of these 51 years were ruled by a single party, the Indian National Congress. Even that 2-year period from 77 to 79, government was headed by Morarji Desai, who was an ex-INC leader by that time. From 89 to 90, by Vishwanath Pratap Singh, who was also a former INC leader by then. In fact, the first purely non-INC Prime Minister we got was Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee in the year 1998. Going by the second point, India has been tolerating the burden of the dynasty from Das Janpath, starting from Jawaharlal Nehru to a 50-year-old youth icon, Rahul Gandhi. From 1947 till 2014, in these 67 years, INC has been in power in 58 years, and out of those 58 years, 47 were totally headed by infamous dynasty. Jawaharlal Nehru from 47 to 64, Indira Gandhi from 66 to 77, and from 80 to 84, Rajiv Gandhi from 84 to 89, and Dr. Manmohan Singh, controlled by the super PM Sonia Gandhi through the NAC from 2004 to 14. Talking about personality cults, there were two prominent leaders from the INC which did not appease the infamous dynasty. They were Lal Bahadur Shastri and PV Narasimha Rao. The dynasty could not tolerate being out from power. Shastri ji died in mysterious conditions in Tashkent just after signing the war treaty in the year 1965. Many were suspicious, but not a single inquiry commission was formed. Filmmaker Vivek Agnihotri has portrayed Shastri ji's case very well in this film, The Tashkent Files, which is a must-watch. Although they couldn't physically harm PV Narasimha Rao, but according to the many insiders of the INC, he was never respected by the dynasty and their loyalists. Narasimha Rao was even humiliated after his death. His family wanted to perform his last rites in Delhi, but Congress didn't allow this. Finally, his last rites were performed in Hyderabad. When the body of the former PM was being taken to airport in Delhi, then the procession stopped at Congress headquarters. It was customary for the bodies of past Congress presidents to be taken inside the party headquarters so that the ordinary workers could pay their respects. But this time, gates did not open for the former party president and PM. The only mistake Narasimha Rao made was that he wanted to make Congress a true democratic party. Strictly abiding with the communist policies, till 1991, no foreign investment was allowed in India, and it was a tough task to start even a small business. The left-leaning policies for 44 years had caused so much damage to the economy. By the June 1991, our forex reserves were severely depleted, barely enough to last for roughly 21 days of his essential imports. India was only weeks away from defaulting on its external balance of payment obligations. We were down to such a position that we had to take an emergency loan of $2.2 billion from the IMF by pledging 67 tons of India's gold reserve as a collateral security. Yes, 67 tons of gold. The Reserve Bank of India also had to airlift 47 tons of gold to the Bank of England and 20 tons of gold to the Union Bank of Switzerland to raise $600 million. It was then, under the leadership of P.V. Narasimha Rao and the Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, that India took a great step in making it a free market by the economic reforms known as liberalization, privatization and globalization. And I would say that one great decision for the country made the dynasty and their loyalists hate P.V. Narasimha Rao even more. Negligible press freedom and censorship on art. The dynasty loved to impose ban on various works like books, movies and plays which were critical of them or tried to bust their set narrative. It all began when India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru decided to move the First Amendment to the Indian Constitution in the year 1951, which as per Clause 2 of Article 19 imposed reasonable restrictions on free speech. Nehru had also justified curbing press freedom through his Draconian Press Act of 1951. This lack of freedom of expression was also visible when poet and lyricist Majrooh Sultanpuri was arrested and spent a year jail for writing a poem which called Nehru as Hitler ka Chela. Ajiz Beg's book Captive Kashmir was banned, Stanley Wolpert's 9 Hours to Rama was banned, film Tango Charlie was banned, S.C. Goswami's film Runmi was banned, documentary named Rajiv's India was banned, Costler's Lotus and Robot was banned, Alexander Campbell's The Heart of India was banned, Satyajit Ray's film Sikkim was banned, film Kissa Kursi Ka was banned, Mrinal Sen's film Neel Akshar Niche was banned. Journalist Louis Simmons was ordered to leave India within 5 hours when he reported on emergency and Sanjay Gandhi slapping Indira Gandhi 6 times. Charles Battleham's book India Independent was banned, and how can we not mention the dark 21 months of emergency imposed by Indira Gandhi. Till the globalization happened in 1991, there was no private news channels in India. We only had DD News, which is very obvious to be the mouthpiece of the government. These are just a few cases. Because all cannot be covered in one single video, there were hundreds of such incidents where the INC curbed the freedom of speech at various times. Now, coming on to mass killings. Jammu massacres in 1947, Maharashtra Brahmin genocide of 1948, Muslim riots of East Bengal in 1950, genocide of Hindu saints on Gopashtami in 1966, Gujarat riots of 1969, Marij Jhapi incident of 1979, anti-Sikh pogroms of 1984, Kashmiri Pandits exodus from 1990, and several other unreported killings and riots. It is estimated that more than 675,000 people were killed from 1947 to 1998, which means on an average 13,235 people were killed every year for 51 years continuously. Putting that into a perspective, from 1998 to 2020, there have been around 5,000 deaths due to riots in total, which means an average of 227 deaths per year. Saw the difference? Foreign policies to please other communist countries. India under the INC has been constantly trying to please the communist regimes. India under Congress gifted Akshay Chin, Karakoram Pass, Tia Panganak, Chabji Valley, Doom Chili, Demjok, and Raki Nula to the communist China, letting China occupy Tibet, and then Panchsheel Agreement to please China even more. Constantly advocating for China's permanent membership in the UN Security Council, both before and after the Indo-China War of 1962. Nehru also declined Kennedy's offer to become a nuclear power, maybe just to please communist China. Not just China, India under Congress also opened up its door for the USSR's Secret Service KGB that planted many of its spies in crucial government positions. At least 10 Indian newspapers were on payroll of KGB. Many leaders of the INC and CPI were heavily funded by the KGB to keep their nexus strong here and engrave the communist ideology in the minds of Indian people and the upcoming students. The KGB was successful in doing so, and that's why today India has a well-knit communist nexus capturing almost all of its field. It is said that by the time of Indira Gandhi, India had most of the KGB spies in the world. By 1970s, India was also called Spies Disneyland, an amusement park for the spies. According to the Mithrokin archives, even the personal office of the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was deeply compromised and infiltrated by the Soviet secret agency. The Indian secret operations, in other words, were an open book for the communists in Soviet Union. They were in a position to manipulate India at will. India under INC signed border agreements with China in 1993, 1996 and 2005.
which prevent the uses of combat tanks, infantry combat vehicles, guns, surface-to-surface missiles, surface-to-air missiles, and any other weapon system mutually agreed upon along the line of actual control.
As a result to that, in 2020, amid the Corona crisis, clash at Galwan Haveli happens with the coward Chinese army using iron rods. And how can we not mention Rajiv Gandhi's foundation here? It is a private trust headed by the INC President Sonia Gandhi. It received donations both from the Chinese embassy and the government of China 3 times between 2005 to 2009. Such a long history of pleasing communist regimes and following their cruel path in every manner possible. It is very likely that India was pretty much like any other communist country till the early 1990s. Now, after advent of social media and several organic leaders, we attain democracy in its true sense and we shall not let it go. Because
सत्ता का खेल तो चलेगा, सरकारें आएंगी, जाएंगी, पार्टियां बनेगी, बिगड़ेंगी, मगर ये देश रहना चाहिए, इस देश का लोकतंत्र रहना चाहिए।